Welcome to Social Genius, brought to you by Drunk on Social, where we help you stay ahead of social media trends, share the latest news, and highlight the strategies that are working to help you grow your business. Now let's join our hosts, Tristan and Jeff, in 3, 2, 1.
By now, you certainly know that Instagram is a social media platform that is arguably the most important platform to establish your brand and business as we head into the future. Understanding that growing a following is simply what the world tells you is important, but in actuality is purely vanity with very little results. And that's why we have come to really appreciate and endorse Michelle Berman with the Instagram Power Method, who teaches you how to actually connect with ideal clients and attract them to you without having to sell. Michelle comes from a place of practicing what she preaches, as she has built her business 100% through organic Instagram leads. Everything is rooted in sales psychology and conversation based on tapping into the brains of your ideal client. Vanity metrics are for, well, vanity. Go connect with Michelle today. Check out powermethodmasterclass.com. That's powermethodmasterclass.com and be prepared to change your business's life. Welcome back to episode 62 of the Social Genius. We are live on the YouTube and being recorded here in a studio near you, or our homes, as the case may be. Neel, maybe your office. I've got a little bit different guest on the right of me or left of me, whichever way it looks on your screen. Usually it's a guy named Tristan. This week, it is a gentleman by the name of Neel. And we've had Neel on before because Neel does some pretty awesome stuff when it comes to social media and video and content strategies. And I wanted to bring Neel back because I don't know how much Neel follows me, but I follow Neel and I watch his stuff and I love what he does. He's been doing some events, some small events, some big events. And obviously he has figured it out. If you go check him out on, let's just use Instagram as an example. He's Neel Home, Neel Home. And he's got a shit ton of followers and a consistent content strategy. And Neel, I wanted to talk to you about that today. So welcome back, first of all.
Thanks for having me.
Let's give a little introduction of yourself, who you are. You're in the mortgage business. You're based out of Nevada, but give a little intro to yourself, and let's dive deep on you first, and then let's talk about the events.
Yeah, so I'm based in Nevada, on the mortgage side. I'm a content creator, I would say first, before a loan officer, before a branch manager, before a salesperson, because if people aren't aware of me, then it's gonna be really hard to do business. And that has never been more of an accurate statement than now, right? It's more true than ever before because we're heading into a slower market, right? Where it actually matters who you know and how many people know you and trust you and all that stuff. So yeah, I've been doing this for a long time. And then just in the last 4 years, got into the content game, first making videos that nobody watched and people made fun of me, and then got a little better and just stuck with it and didn't quit. And it really started to get a lot of traction in the last 18 months and just took off. And over even doing bad content, Jeff, I was getting traction, like more growth because so many people in our industry just don't do it. So just showing up weekly with bad videos was even a net positive to my business. And then, kind of got better at it from there and just took off.
I love it. And you said something that kind of sparked an objection that we constantly hear. And that is, okay, Neel, how can you say you're a content creator first? How do you do business? I mean, how are you in your business? And first of all, let me digress for a second. So Neel and I run very parallel. I think we've run really parallel in terms of when we started doing what we're doing and where we've kind of scaled up to. And we do things slightly different in how we execute, but very parallel in terms of the general strategies, which is why I think you and I can relate so well. But yes. You call yourself a content creator. I hear this question all the time. I'm going to ask you, how in the hell can you operate a business, which is the business of mortgages, which is answering the phone when a realtor calls, which is answering the phone when a borrower calls, which is dealing with fires that you're putting out every single day because we know how this goes, which is dealing with objections on rate because that's what's happening right now in our business. How? I mean, come on. How does the average Joe realtor, how can they pull that off?
Yeah, so I think you just make a priority, like you time block, just like everything else. It's like people say they don't have time to create content. And if you're a user of social media, this would be awkward for some people. What if I took your phone from you and looked up how much time you spend online, right? And then somebody might spend 10 hours a week or 20 hours a week on social media or different sites. And then that same person will say they don't have time to create content, right? So there is time, it's just a matter of what's a priority. So that's kind of a hard way of saying it. But I think the other part is after speaking all these events and telling all these people to do content for years, I found that it's not like that they're just lazy. It's just they don't know what to do, right? And so you give them tactics, you give them kind of the way of doing it, and that has helped people. And then also the other thing that I think people will the reason why they don't do it is because they don't want to put themselves out there starting from scratch. And the good news is I don't think anybody cares because everyone's so busy, it's so noisy out here that in the beginning, you're gonna have very few people watching your videos anyways. So like, don't worry about, I'm gonna put myself out there and it's gonna look bad and look like there's 4 people watching it in the beginning and 2 of them are related to you. So don't worry about that part, you know what I mean? Like, it's not a big deal. And then as you get better, like you'll start to build your audience, and that's the way it should work. Like when you get to actually more people watching it, by that time, you've probably worked out some of the bugs and you've gotten better on camera.
Love it. I love it. And I think, let me articulate it a little bit differently what you said, which is, if he steals your phone, he's going to see that you are just like everybody else spending how many hours a day on social media. But what are you doing? Are you going to fall in the 98% that is a consumer? Or are you going to find you're going to put yourself in the 2% that are creators and, find the time? And I answer the same question. It's like, listen, man, I just prioritize it. And if I don't have time, days get away from me. I don't know if this happens to you, but there are days when I'm playing reactive, right? All day long. And then it's like, okay, family's in bed, back down to my office, turn on the lights, let's create some content. Like, it's just it's the way it's got to go, right?
Big time.
Awesome. So let's talk about your strategy, man. So, tell us about your journey. So, you probably started like me and you were just kind of muddying along, and then you figured something out and it's working really, really well with your content strategy, which lies around investing and things like that. But walk us through that and hopefully and articulate it in a way that maybe somebody can, that light bulb moment where they'll figure out, that's what I need to be doing.
Yeah. So I think the best way to think about this in the most simplest terms is going to be just look at the questions that you're getting, from clients. Or the questions that consumers are having about our industry online, problems that people typically face when trying to buy a home or sell a home if you're a realtor, or get a mortgage if you're a mortgage guy. And what do we do to solve those problems? What do we do to answer those questions? And we're having these conversations one-on-one anyways with clients, right? So those are the videos. So when a client says, I'd like to buy, but Neel, dude, I don't really have that much money to put down. What's my answer, right? That's the video. Or, you know what? My credit sucks, but I really want to get into homeownership. What do I need to do to get there? My answer is the video. The problem is the way people normally do this is very thoroughly, with a lot of jargon and a lot of explanation. That's our job with clients. But what I found is in the content world, because it's so noisy right now, because there's so many people putting out content, not within our industry, but just in general, there's just a lot of stuff coming at the consumer. It's hard to get people's attention, right, in the beginning. Once you have authority, it's easier to do that. But in the beginning, it's hard to keep people's attention. So now what you have to do is take what you would normally say and dumb it down, and probably dumb it down one more time, and then remove a bunch of words. And then you get into this mode of like taking a somewhat complex topic and making it simple. And some people will say, dude, if you do that, Jeff or Neel, you're gonna sound dumb. Well, no, taking complex things and making it easy for the average everyday person is actually a skill. It's a sought after skill. And if you're good at that, like you have a huge advantage over your competitors, because everybody else is going to take 3 minutes to explain what you can explain in 27 seconds. Yeah. So instead of saying this whole drawn out thing, I could say, look, these are the 3 things you need to do to improve your credit so you could buy a home. These are the 3 things you know, something simple like that. And people will watch because they're like, it's less about you, it's more about the actual tips.
I love that. So when you're thinking about that, because it's funny that you mentioned that we tend to overtalk, right?
Yeah.
And it's like we're scared to death of the camera. Then we finally turn the camera on, and then we just blabber on with 52,000 for 5 minutes, right? And that's what.
And we also like repeat ourselves, and we tie, you know, we circle back. So to summarize, guys, these were the things. I like literally just said that, and then I say it again at the end. Like I did the same shit. It's just hard to, you know, because that's how we do it with clients. You really want to make sure they understand, but just, you know, a stranger on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn doesn't have the attention span to do that.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like when if you think of it in terms of like television commercials, which is something most of us, especially, you know, our generation can relate to. There's a reason why they're 30 seconds.
Oh yeah.
You've got to get a powerful message across in a short amount of time.
And so the other thing that's really a shift, Jeff, that's really changed is in the beginning, I was creating content for the few people who followed me. You know, even if people watching this, they're like, yeah, I got 300 followers or 1,000 followers or maybe more. So you think you're supposed to create content for those people. That is the incorrect answer. You're supposed to be creating content for strangers, especially if people are going to share your content or if the platform is going to push your content. Like right now, TikTok and Instagram push your content to brand new people who have never seen you before. And so what would you do if a stranger came across your video? Like you have no authority. They don't know who the heck you are. They don't know how successful you are or how much industry experience you have. Like, what are you going to do in 30 seconds to provide value? And that is the quickest way to get someone's attention, is to give them something useful that they would save, share, or consume, you know? And that's I think that's a shift, is create content for strangers, not for the people that already follow you. They already hit the button. You don't need to convince them again. Like, they're good. So let's get some new people in there. And that's where you're going to grow.
I love that. Now, what would you say to the person that says, but Neel, my content strategy is built around my SOI, my past customers. I am talking to them because I want them to remember me.
That's cool. You can do both, right? So you can make videos that are for SOI. They're not going to do as good with strangers, but those people already, you know, have some, you have authority with them. There's some trust and likability there. So you could make longer videos for them, and you should, right? Like one of the things I did in the beginning that no one really saw was I would just send videos out to my database, and it was great. Like people stay engaged with you. They consume those more than they would an email. So I use BombBomb and other tools to just embed a video in an email and send it out to the database.
I was just going to ask you that. So you use BombBomb?
Yeah. So I was using that, and sometimes I'll use like Vimeo or even YouTube. You can put a video on YouTube for free, unlisted, put the link in a email. Like someone's like, well, I don't have a CRM. Well, you got email, you got Gmail, or you got Outlook. Like literally copy and paste 100 emails on the BCC line of an email and put the link to the unlisted video, which is free on YouTube, and blast that out. Or it could be a listed video on your channel if you want to make it public. But like sending market updates, sending little things like this, like just distribute it in a simple way. People get hung up on like, oh, I don't have these tools, or I don't have this. You got an iPhone, you got email, and YouTube's free, and that's all you need.
Yep. It's funny. I used to actually do that strategy by using YouTube Unlisted before BombBomb existed.
Yeah,
and it was more tedious, but it worked.
I mean, I'm just saying, like if somebody's like, yo, I don't want to buy BombBomb, I don't want to use, I hate new tech, I hate learning a new system. Yeah. Okay, well, you got a phone, just shoot it on there and just upload it. So I think like we got to kill the excuses, make it simple for someone. And then what I found is people aren't creative, but creating makes you creative, right? Like someone might look at your strategy on like TikTok and Reels and say, Jeff, how do you come up with all this funny stuff to do? And it's like, I'm sure you didn't have all these ideas. They just started to come, like it's like a river, like it just starts flowing, but you got to get in there. You got to start doing it. And so I had no ideas for informational content. Now I have so many ideas, I'll never execute on all of them. I'll never be able to complete all my ideas. Yeah. So I went from having nothing to like a flood. And how does that happen? I have the same knowledge. It's just by doing it, it just opens this other part of your brain of creativity. Like, oh, I could say it like this, or I could do it like this. And the problem with that is you start obsessing a little bit. So you start thinking of it all the time, you know? And so you gotta keep a lid on that sometimes, like with your family. My wife gets pissed at me sometimes.
You're preaching to the choir. You and I speak a very unique language, a language that doesn't exist to most other people. We could geek out all day on this stuff. We need to hang out one of these years.
Yeah, I'm just like, I'm watching this. I'm like, okay, shit, I better put this on stories, or, you know, I better do like my mind's always thinking of, hey, I need to create something. And, you know, it's a gift and a curse a little bit, right?
It is, you know, it's not to digress too much on that, but we were actually at my daughter's graduation party yesterday. I heard my mother-in-law telling somebody, Jeff's really good about capturing, you know, memories on video and camera and stuff like that. I'm like, I'm glad you noticed that I'm, you know, because usually
some people appreciate it. That's cool.
Yes.
Like a lot of people will say, hey man, you do really cool stories. I'm like, I'm just, you know, in the beginning you're doing stories and you're all shaky and you don't know. And, you know, you're trying to say you want to highlight, for example, you know, something personal, because that's a huge part of content, is like showing people you're a real human, not just not the information, but like, oh, here's my family, here's my interests, right? So Instagram stories are a great way. Facebook and Instagram stories are a great way to do that. So I would, like, you know, in the beginning, say I'm like showing this cool place where I'm at right now, and the sky looks great. So that's worthy of one story. The problem in the beginning was like I would show it, you know, for 40 seconds and you lose people's attention. Like, so you start to get these little tricks like, okay, you know, if attention is also valued even in stories, let's be quick to the point. Many times I'll take a camera out and say something to the camera, and it took me like a minute and a half. I'm like, you know what? I could probably get that down to like 45 seconds if I really was straight to the punch. No fluff, you know, no ums and ahs and all this other shit. So I'll sometimes record the same thing like 6 times. And then I'll get it down to where it only takes up 3 stories, which is 45 seconds, right? Rather than 6 stories. Because you know that people's attention is going to go down each dot there is there. They're just not, they're in the mode of like quick. So, you know, this whole skill of being able to provide value or entertainment in short bits is becoming really valuable.
Yeah.
It's underrated and it's super valuable right now, because that means that you can keep people's attention for short bits. Once you have them, now you can keep them for longer. So now I'm transitioning over to YouTube. Let's get them over to watch some 5 or 8 minute videos, which feels like an attorney on Instagram, but people love those videos on YouTube, right?
Yeah. I love that. I love it. So okay, so let's talk about this continued evolution. So you talk about kind of how you started, and you know, and you struggled like everybody else. You went down the path of, okay, I'm just going to answer the questions that I'm getting asked every day. But now you've shifted, and we're talking Instagram. I'm not going to talk about YouTube because that's a whole nother beast for another day.
A whole other call, yeah.
Correct. You shifted into making money, investing, how to become a millionaire. How do you make money when you sleep? Those kind of things. And so what caused that shift? And is that where your growth occurred?
Yes. So like right now we talk about mortgage and real estate. Now last year was a kind of cool thing. In 2021, mortgage and real estate was actually trending as a really high search thing, because real estate was red hot. Like it seemed like everybody's like trying to get into real estate, buy real estate, and then they need loans and all this stuff, right? So even if you talked about those things, a few of us who did those topics like really got a lot of extra traction. Like right now it's calming down a little bit. And what you'll find though is what's always trending is money, financial fitness, right? And so what, at the end of the day, like you could talk about real estate, but what is one of the great ways that real estate has helped people? It's to build wealth, right? So many times we talk about the process up front, and then then at the end we're like, and that's the result, or that's the benefit. But nobody, like, they don't give a shit about the process, right? So it'd be like, if you and I said, hey, let's show you how to start a podcast. Like there's going to be some few people who are interested in a podcast that want to learn that. But what if you started out with say, this is the most underrated way to build a really deep connection with your audience that can make you millions of dollars. And by the way, you're probably not even thinking of it. You'd be like, what's Jeff going to tell me now? Like I'm hooked. Yeah. Then you go into the process, which is start a podcast. Here's how you do that. Yeah. If you start the video with how to start a podcast, or you start it the other way I just said, I can guarantee I'll bet any amount of money that the first video gets exponentially more views. So you must start with the benefit. So that's why I started to do like, here's a way to build wealth. Here's a way to become financially free. Buy rental properties. So that way you have passive income, or, what's the most common thing I've seen with my most wealthy clients is that they all have a bunch of real estate. Why did they prefer real estate? Well, it's because of all these tax benefits in real estate, right? So I like that part of it. I personally own, a bunch of properties. So I just wanted to talk about what I'm doing. And so I thought I like the wealth part about that. And it turns out that a lot of consumers are interested in leveling up their money and investing and wanting more passive income. So that's cool. And then on the real estate side, I think like there's still a lot of people into real estate, like getting a property. And so you would just want to talk about, again, the benefits up front or a mistake that they could avoid, because that's also a benefit. Like if I can avoid a pitfall, that is a true benefit to me. So I could say like, here's the worst mistake you can make if you're a first-time buyer. Don't do this. Or here's like the 3 biggest mistakes I see cost people money when they're selling or when they're buying. So mistake avoidance is another kind of way to loop people in. But you just kind of think of like, if I just come across the first few lines of this video, what's in it for me? And try and make that the broadest appeal possible, and then get narrow in the actual video.
Yeah, you even said it more so because we talk about hooks all the time, and it's, you and I sit and watch our peers' videos and cringe because it's like, oh God, don't lead like that. Like, you just nailed it. I mean, the way you described starting a podcast or how to create wealth, it's leading with that solution, leading with the end result, leading with what they want.
Yeah, like how many times have you seen this video, Jeff? How to get your offer accepted in a tight market. Well, what if I'm a buyer? I don't even know the market was tight. Shit, I don't even know what an offer is. And I sure as shit don't know the value of getting an offer accepted versus not. Like, I'm just new to this whole thing. Yeah. So what, at the end of the day, are you really talking about? You're talking about one of the most key components to getting a house, or you're also talking about a mistake that buyers make when they're buying a house. So here is the most common mistake I see people making right now when they're trying to buy a house. Their offer isn't structured properly. You have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. So now I've just taken that very narrow topic of how to write an offer and I've given it broad appeal. I've said, hey, whether or not you're even in the market to buy a house, you should probably save this video. Hey, you should probably share this with your family and friends because this is important. So it makes the content more appealing when you lead with this. So think of, now if anybody's watching this, just think of like, hey, these are the things I need to think about when I want to make a video about a certain topic. Take that same topic and make it appeal to more people who aren't even in the market right now. That would be your goal.
I'm gonna put you on the spot. Give another relevant example. So let's use. I'm just gonna see what you got. Let's use the example of, is the market going to crash? That's a common title or lead in, or interest rates are rising. How would you lead in the video versus what you're seeing from 99% of our world?
Yeah, so people are talking about interest rates going up. Some people aren't aware. It's very narrow, I think now it's becoming more in the news. So people are starting to become aware. What does this mean? So you could say, what's going on with interest rates and what does that mean for you? That would be one way. I would say, really what's happening is the Fed is changing rates to cool off the housing market, if you want to be straight with it. So I would say, did the government just make it harder to buy a house? Well, sort of. Here's what happened, right? And then you'd be like, what, the government? And then if you like Joe Biden, maybe you put somebody else like in there. If you don't like Joe Biden, you could put like Joe Biden's fit. Did Joe Biden just make it harder to buy a house? Even though, then some guy's gonna be like, well, it's not the government, it's the Fed. Okay, it's not literal, right? You can get to the point in the explanation. You can clarify even in the caption, but in the beginning, you need to make it very simple. So, those would be good hooks. I think one other one that would work really well would be like, the biggest news in housing that you're not even aware of, or is the housing market finally going to cool off? Here's what's going on, and these are topics that people are actually searching for right now. Is the housing bubble going to pop? Yep. Or it's finally happening. Housing is cooling off. Here's what's going on. Then you could talk about rates.
Yeah. I love it.
And then you could also spin it as a benefit, right? You could also say, well, shit, rates went up. That's going to eliminate some of the people who were barely qualified or who were, reaching on price. But for the people that are well qualified, now you're going to be able to buy a property with less competition. So that's the good news. And by the way, the house purchase can be forever. Your interest rate doesn't have to be forever. You can always refinance when rates come down, because one thing I do know is what goes up must come down. Or you could make it kind of like you're not stuck with this rate forever. Just get into the house, because that's the most important thing. Then you can refi later.
It's beautiful.
So realtors and lenders should be doing that video.
I agree. But listen to what he just said there. It's not just about doing the video, it's how you lead into that video that is going to probably dictate how well the video performs.
And if you get traction, you won't quit. So the problem, Jeff, is most people don't get any traction, so they quit. Like, what's the point? Nobody's watching these videos. Yeah. I'm going back to whatever else I was doing, Netflix at night, right? So if we could if these tips would help people get going, then I think you'll be better off. So obviously some of it's just putting in the work, putting in the reps, takes time. But the other part is, hey, there's probably a more effective way to do the video. If you talk to either one of us 3 years ago, I bet you we would both just say, get on camera. Just put yourself out there. Don't worry about it. Just put them out. Now that's not enough anymore. Unfortunately, you have to actually do a little better to stand out.
Yeah, totally agree. So, as we're talking to that audience, which is the majority of everyone listening, probably, most people get kind of hung up or they get paralyzed by perfection. And D-Rock, we talk to D-Rock a lot, and he's a big proponent of just saying, listen, consistency, quantity over quality, just get it out. What is your take on that mindset?
Yeah, I think there was a point where you should just post as much as possible, and that works on now there's a little bit of nuance. So like TikTok, for example, is literally like swinging a bat, and if you get better at your swing, and then you connect more often. And a lot of times you could have a great swing but not connect. That's okay. Just keep swinging, and then you'll start hitting, and you start seeing this reach. And so you should feed that as much as possible. That's why Gary and D-Rock say, hey, post 4 times a day on TikTok if you can. Now, I understand that's not realistic for people, but the more the better. Now, what I found on other platforms like Instagram, and that same advice needs a little bit of tweaking, because on Instagram, for example, when you post, it shows it to a segment of the people who follow you. It also shows it to, if it's a reel, it shows it to a segment of people who are strangers, new followers, never seen you before, for free, by the way, which is kind of cool. So it's introducing you to these random people on the internet. But when it shows it to your people, if they scroll past it or don't watch it or just think it's cringe, that kind of pushes it down, and it doesn't keep going to the next levels, right? So, if you just are posting for the sake of posting and it's just garbage, people are going to tune you out or even mute you in certain cases. On TikTok, it's mostly the opposite. It's mostly strangers. So if you screwed up, you got another shot, literally 1 minute later, you could just post another one and be another random group of strangers. But on Instagram, it's still kind of a different algorithm. So you kind of have to tweak that. And I don't want someone to take the advice of post 6 times a day and they post dirt, and just stuff it's just not relevant, and they're not putting any thought into the content. And then all of a sudden, everybody in their sphere or SOI who follows them on Instagram is literally cringing every time they see their name come up, and they just scroll past it, or worse, they mute you, which is even sending a worse signal to the algorithm.
Yeah. Or unfollow.
Oh yeah, worse. Yeah, so you're losing people by doing this. So I think you should probably have a balance of it meets the base level of quality and is useful. And then from there, post as much as you possibly can, and I would rather have someone do commit to once a week or twice a week than to go hard 6 times a day for 2 weeks and then quit.
Yeah.
Because it's not about who can do it this month. It's about who's going to do it for the whole year and 2 years and 3 years. That's where the real benefit is if you stick with it.
Yeah, totally agree. It's about building a cadence for yourself. If you're nowhere, start somewhere. Then you're not going to
once a week would be great. I mean, you're beating majority of the industry if you post just once a week.
Correct. Yeah. And then take it and learn that cadence and figure out a rhythm, and then jump to 2 times a week, and then continue to grow from there, which is exactly what you and I have done. I want to shift over to your, I think that tons of gold right there. If you didn't take anything from that, you're not paying attention. But let's talk about these events that you do. So you've got a big one coming up, but one of the reasons why you and I connected in the first place was because I see these little masterminds you're doing. That's what I would call them. Content creation workshops. You people fly in. I don't know how many of them are local, but it's pretty intimate. And you put together these workshops where you're helping people create a content strategy. Tell us a little bit about that, and kind of what the participants, the attendees are gaining as a result of coming to that.
Yeah. So we have, what I did was I had a lot of people reach out to me over the years for tips and advice and things like that. And I got to speak at a lot of cool events and conferences and mortgage companies and real estate companies who had me come talk to their teams. And I would talk about it. And then I look back and nobody does the work. Nobody did the videos, or maybe a few people did, but then they quit. And I'm like, shit, what's going on here? And I said, you know what? Like, if there's a room of 100, what if there's like 3 people here that are dead serious about taking this thing to the next level? And I said, look, let me just try this. I just did it like cold one night. I was like, hey, how many people are guilty of coming to these events and never doing the work afterwards? Myself included. Like, I got a book full of notes and nothing executed. Okay, so to make sure that doesn't happen, I'm doing an event. I'm gonna bring 10 people out to my office. My entire media team is gonna be there, and we're gonna do it for you. We're gonna show you how we come up with the ideas. We're gonna help you write them. Then we're gonna shoot them. We're gonna show you how to set up the shot. We're gonna actually shoot it. We're gonna show you how to deliver the message properly with proper communication and really like reduce the learning curve, and hold your hand and do it. And then when you leave at the end of that workshop, you're gonna have done some great videos, and you'll know, even more valuable, you'll know how to continue doing it on your own. So I figured if I got someone started with doing it properly, they will get traction quicker. They'll be less likely to quit, and they'll have the confidence because they're like going to take this thing that they put on this pedestal, like, I can't do this, and shit, like, dude, I did it. I could do this, man. This is actually something that's been the biggest shift, is some of the participants left with just their chest out a little bit more, like, yo, I'm good at this. Like, I'm actually cool on video. Like, I got better at it in just a short period of time because I worked with experts. So it was kind of cool to see. We do in really small groups, just 10 people, bring them out here. I have a media team of like 10 people, video editing, speech communication, copywriting. And we just go through the whole process, start to finish. And then while you're not shooting in that workshop, you're with me in a classroom where I'm teaching you the ways to leverage it. So it's like, okay, now that you have this social presence and you have some followers, what are the simple conversion tactics that you can use that have worked the best? So I've tried 100 things. There's 7 that work. Let's just teach you those 7 so you don't have to go through all the trial and error. So I just show you, hey, this is a really good way to convert your followers to a webinar where you can get leads, or here's a really good way to host a class for other realtors or for lenders. And so I just show you how I set those funnels up, and then how the participants can do it themselves. And it creates that same thing of like, that wasn't so bad, I can do this. Yeah. And so you kind of leave with this kind of full 360 thing of like, I'm going to create content. Here's the purpose of the content. Once I have an audience, here's how I'm going to leverage that to get business. And then I can repeat and really grow from there. So it's been super fun. I love teaching this stuff. My main business is doing deals, just like majority of the people in the industry, but it's just a passion project I do on the side, and it's been awesome.
Yeah, which probably ends up feeding the beast ultimately.
I've made some really cool relationships with people. Some people have ended up coming to work with us, but it's not like an event for me to get something from you. It's an event for the participants to jumpstart their content and get traction and learn. And then just by just, the nature of the thing, we end up staying in contact, and some business has formed from that, but that's not the main purpose of it. It just happened. And then the other event is more like a large scale thing that we do annually. Last year we had to do it really small because of COVID, but this year all the restrictions are off. So we're doing a really big event in Vegas. We do this once a year. It's called the Forward event. And we have Gary Vee there, Ed Milet, a bunch of other amazing speakers. And we have 700 of like the top people from real estate and mortgage come out to Vegas for a day. And it's just like, it's one of these things that's not like a typical conference. It's like high energy, all killer, no filler. Like we have one piece of value after another piece of value. A lot of great networking's going on in a cool venue. This one's at Resorts World in Vegas, which is that new resort that just opened last year. And it's just an awesome experience. And the reason why I love live events is yes, you're going to learn something and you're going to take away some amazing knowledge. And it's cool to get out of your current environment with a new group in a new city, like-minded. Just get out of your day to day, because you can't absorb this information otherwise. So you're there, you're able to take it in, something's going to click. I heard things 7 times. I heard it at the event and it finally clicked. Cool. That's going to work for somebody. But then the next part that is underrated is the relationships in the room. So sometimes the guy sitting right to the right and left of you is more valuable than the person on the stage from a business perspective. And if you introduce yourself to some people there, focus on going deeper with like 5 people, and then all you have to do is be genuine and follow up afterwards. So like, people meet these people, never speak to them again. Like that's not how networking is supposed to be. So exchange contact info. The next week, hey man, really good meeting you at the event. Looking forward to whatever you talked about, or just follow up, because nobody ever follows up. And then now you have a good open conversation with that person. It's led to huge business opportunity for me. And I think it's totally underrated, because people go to these things for the information, but that's only half the benefit. The networking is huge.
Yeah, exactly. You're 1,000,000% right. We've been, and you are the sum of the people you spend your time with. And if you're the person that goes to events and ends up spending your time at the bar, and you come in either hungover, or you don't even show up at all the next day, which I know I'm talking to some of you, look in the mirror. I mean, that's probably indicative of where your business has gone as well.
And people will say it's a waste of time, these events, and it's a waste of time because you didn't go in intentionally. So go in intentionally looking to create relationships. Go in intentionally looking, there's going to be 30 things that are going to be taught to you. Pick 2 that really resonated, and let's execute those. You speak at events all the time, Jeff. I see you at this thing and that thing every other month. Do you ever feel like there's a bit of an overload, like information overload from the audience perspective?
Well, I mean, being somebody that has now been doing it, what you and I are talking about and what we're teaching, and Tristan's another one. I think there's not enough actual practitioners. I think there's too many people talking about this that were already on a success level, that they just got into social media and hired a team to do it, and they've really not done it. Right? They're not doing it. They just have teams of people doing it. And to me, that's a lot less valuable than the people that bootstrapped it and said, I got to figure this out. And then as a result of what we've done, it has skyrocketed, hockey stick curved our businesses, which is like you and I. That's why you and I are such big believers in this stuff. That's why when I stand on stage, I'm so passionate about it, because I really genuinely say, this is what it can do for you. Frankly, and Neel, I think I've told you this before. I share for 2 reasons. One, I genuinely want to teach, but there's that other side of me that says, I also realize I'm intimidating my competition while I do this. And they're going to stay intimidated, and that's okay. I'm okay with that too. Right. But I don't know, to answer your question on overload, I just don't think there's enough of, there's definitely an overload of content. There's definitely an overload of conferences, especially post-COVID, now that there's so much crap online. But it's up to each individual to find the people, and that's where it comes back to finding the practitioners. So whether you're learning about, dominating leads, whether you're learning about, how to be the best, like I said, lead converter or door knocker, I don't care what it is. You want to get into luxury, find the people that you can find a track record and are actually living it every single day, versus there's a lot of pretenders out there.
Big time. It's like, the coaching space, and coaches provide insane value, but they're not the same as a guy who's in the trenches, so that's why I love the events where there's people speaking who are actually practitioners doing it, people like yourself. So those are going to be the best things to people to learn from. And I think there's this new phenomenon happening where, you used to like really look up to business leaders. I still do, but like, there's only so much you can learn from like Elon Musk, like I'm not going to, it's too far ahead. Like, you know what I mean? So the guy that provides the most value is a guy who's 1, 2, 3 steps ahead of you, because the best type of content is when I'm watching it and I'm like, you know what, I could do this, right? Or if Jet did it, I could do it. If Neel did it, I could do it. And then when we are actually vulnerable and we're like, here, look, I go back. Here's one of my first videos. Look how bad I suck. By the way, that was just like 3 years ago, right? I'm an introvert. Like I still did it. So, like you gotta put yourself like, hey, I'm just like you guys out here. I'm not that far removed. And probably there's people in the audience that are smarter than me in terms of industry knowledge. But I'm here to help you with the marketing piece. And here's how I did it. And I think that has been really helpful to people because they can say, hey, I can do this shit too. And then I think that whole, the game has shifted, the attention game has shifted, and people want the goods. You got to give it to them now. Like this whole, celebritizing things, like, oh, look at me in front of my new thing, or look at me with this celebrity. People don't give a shit anymore. Yeah. Like you could take a picture with the biggest celebrity in the world and think that it's going to blow you up, and literally people have moved on seconds later. They don't care. Yeah. I mean, I used to think if I could get this guy on my podcast, it'll blow up. No, the only way to blow a podcast is if you provide insane value to the listeners and they share it. That is literally the only way to blow up now. Same with your content. So that's cool because it actually evens the playing field. It doesn't matter who you are. If you provide value, people share your shit, you win.
I love it. So how can, and we'll share this in the show notes, but how can people learn more about the upcoming event?
So go to forwardevent.com. Hopefully you'll be there, Jeff. It's going to be awesome. There's a bunch of people that are there, going to be there, by the way. It's going to be amazing. And when I say this, I mean, I'll tell you right now, this will be the best event you've been to if you come to this event. If somebody's like, yo, I came here, it was a fucking waste of my time, I'll give you your money back afterwards. Like, come find me there. Tell me you didn't like it. I'll refund you on the spot, because we put so much effort into this thing being awesome and being like, basically I go to all these events. I'm like, that was cool. That wasn't so cool. So I've taken like all the good shit and then I've cut out all the stuff that bothers me and like left that out. So yeah, it'll be pretty dope to see. And like you said, it's post-COVID now. So you're just getting a ton of these things. And I've been to some really good ones. I've also been to some pretty bad ones. It just kind of depends on who's running them.
Totally. 100%. Yep. And like you say, it is somewhat diluted. What about the smaller events? Where can they learn more about those if you're going to do those?
So if you go to my account, Neel Home on Instagram, there's a link in the bio and it'll tell you I have links to all the different programs that we do. We have a virtual and then we have an in-person. So anybody who would like to connect. And if you're not ready to come to anything, just join the email list. I send out free tips every month. So
I was just going to say, and that's the thing, and I want to call it a trick of the trade, but I mean, I intentionally follow the people that that continually inspire me, or doing things that I know are at a high level. You and I, it's not competition. It's let's kind of work from each other. And he did something cool here. Team, we got to do this something cool, right? Yeah. I've got the director of operations sitting on the back end here watching this, and she's probably going to come back in the meeting and be like, we got to do this and we got to do this. And we're all living in a copycat world. Ultimately, that's what this is all about. And
and you're going to do it different than I would have done it, and I see stuff in your stories. I'm like, shit, I could do that, and it actually inspires you to do more. Because you have this like FOMO. So it's like, oh, Jeff's doing it. I got to keep up with this guy. I better get my podcast started too, and it's kind of cool. It's not a competition, even though it is, but it's kind of like friendly, it's like, because there's plenty of business for everybody. That's it. And what's cool about this is there's not that many people doing content properly. So when you become a good marketer, when you become a good content creator, you put yourself in this elite category that is truly separating you from everybody else. There's a bunch of people who are going to try, but who's actually going to do it properly and who's going to stick with it? That's going to be a small group, and it is totally attainable to put yourself in that group. That's the cool part. Still, 2022, you can still do it.
Yeah. I love it, dude. So obviously we've mentioned Neel Home on Instagram. Where else can people find you?
That's the best place. And then there's a link there that can connect with everything I'm doing. And anybody message me or whatever, usually I try to respond to everybody who asks questions. So hit me up. I love doing this stuff, probably to my own detriment. I'm like, working on answering somebody's content questions for free when I should be working on the next deal, but because I love this more than I do, but that's just the rub. I always have to just block the time. So now what I've done to kind of fix that is block time for actually responding and talking to people. Because if you just do it randomly, you'll be all over scatterbrained, you know?
I know the feeling. I know the feeling well. And for those of you that are thinking and watching this and thinking, I want to be like that, you know, there is a level of scaling your team first. You know, you've got to get your business in order. If your business affairs are in order and your business fails, this blows up. And I think you and I obviously must have done a pretty good job of scaling our teams to be able to keep that machine just kind of turning while we're off, like I always say, just being a unicorn and you know, playing in the rainbows. But
by the way, there's I'm sure you spend a lot of time solving mortgage problems still during the day.
To a degree, more on the business side. We've really scaled to the point where I don't. I joke and say I try never to open Encompass. That's my goal for an entire year. Never to open Encompass. That's our LOS.
Holy shit!
And
I've
my
opened
goal.
it 7 times today. Unfortunately,
I haven't probably opened it in 7, probably a few weeks, to be honest with you.
Wow.
That's where I am. But anyway, now I just gave Neel a goal. Now I just gave Neel.
There you go. I see. I'm learning something.
Yeah, but that's the reality.
That's it.
That's it. I mean, you look at the Ken Pozak, you look at the Brad McCallums, you look at these people, they're scaling their business because they've figured out a way to spend a lion's share of their time on content creation like Neel has. Dude, I don't want to take any more of your time. This has already been a long podcast, but a golden podcast. I just love connecting with you. If nobody listens to this, it's worth my time. So I appreciate you giving us your time, and let's definitely stay in touch. Let's talk offline about the event.
Thanks for listening to Social Genius, brought to you by Drunk on Social. We are here to help you take your business to new levels through social media. Make sure to subscribe to get updates on new episodes and come join us on our Drunk on Social Facebook page. And as always, make sure you leave us a great review on your favorite podcast app. Feedback and likes are very much appreciated.